Okay, so you want to start a human composting company. You rent a peaceful industrial building. Install a row of polished stainless steel vessels. Fill each one with wood chips, straw, and alfalfa. Charge a family somewhere around $6,000 or $7,000. Wait several weeks. Return roughly a pickup truck load of soil. No casket inventory. No cemetery to maintain for the next 100 years. No natural gas furnace running at cremation temperatures. And, unlike many businesses, the underlying need does not disappear in a recession. Every death creates a disposition decision. But it does not automatically create a customer for you. A family sees a $7,000 service. The owner sees 6 weeks of occupied capacity. The family can choose burial, cremation, another human composting operator, or the funeral home it already trusts. The decision is mandatory. Your share of it is not. It still sounds like a strange but unusually dependable business. Here is the problem. A customer may pay $7,000, but one person can occupy your most important piece of equipment for 5 to 7 weeks. Then the material still has to cure, be processed, tested, packaged, and released. The family sees one price. You see a calendar. Recompose currently lists its full service at $7,000. Return Home lists a base price of $5,450. The National Funeral Directors Association says the median American funeral with viewing and burial was $8,300 in 2023, while the median funeral with cremation was $6,280. So the price is not absurdly high for death care. It is also not high enough to forgive an empty facility. And this industry has already shown how wide that gap can become. In a 2023 company report later filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, Recompose reported approximately $1.18 million in annual revenue and a net loss of roughly $4.38 million. That loss does not tell us what one mature vessel earns. Recompose was also paying to develop a new process, change laws, educate the public, and build an industry that barely existed. But it does tell us something important. A $7,000 price tag does not make the surrounding business cheap. By the end of this video, you will know what kind of company you would actually be building, what a facility needs before it can accept one person, where the money really comes from, why pre-planning is valuable without being free cash, how many cases one vessel can realistically process, and whether starting with 30 vessels is smart, or simply the most expensive way to learn whether your city wants the service. Because this is not really a compost business. It is a funeral home with a slow production line. Before you order a vessel, you need to decide which version of the business you are opening. The first is the affiliate funeral home. This company may never compost a person itself. It already has licensed funeral directors, removal vehicles, refrigeration, an arrangement office, and relationships with local hospitals, hospices, and families. When a customer chooses human composting, the funeral home handles the paperwork, takes the person into care, coordinates transport to a distant operator, and remains the family's local point of contact. Recompose publicly lists affiliate funeral homes in states including California, Delaware, New Jersey, North Carolina, Oregon, Texas, and Utah. Some of those states do not yet have a local operating facility. The affiliate sells access and coordination rather than vessel time. This is the lowest capital version. It is also the least independent. Your customer relationship may be local, but your delivery date, transport cost, and final process depend on somebody else's facility, hundreds or thousands of miles away. The second business is the local natural organic reduction operator. An affiliate, a local operator, and a regional facility are 3 different businesses. This is what most people imagine. You lease or buy a building, install perhaps 8, 12, or 20 vessels. Receive cases from your own funeral home and from partner funeral homes. Run the transformation, cure the soil, process it, arrange laboratory testing, and return or donate the material. Now the company is part funeral home, part regulated reduction facility, part logistics operation, and part batch processing plant. The third business is the regional destination facility. This company operates dozens of vessels and serves a much wider area. It may coordinate cases from all 50 states, maintain a national affiliate network, offer ceremonies, sell pre-need plans, and license its system to other operators. Recompose says its Seattle greenhouse contains 33 vessels and that it serves clients from all 50 states. Return Home has described its Auburn, Washington facility as an 11,500 square foot operation with capacity for 74 transformations per month. Those are not simply larger versions of the 8-vessel local shop. They depend on transportation partners, 24-hour intake, specialized staff, a recognizable brand, and enough current demand to keep a much larger calendar full. For the financial model in this episode, we are deliberately choosing the hardest version, a standalone regional operator in Washington with 30 vessels. Washington gives us the most mature operating rulebook. The standalone model forces every cost into the open. Then, at the end, we will decide whether this is actually the smart entry point, or whether the better business is an existing funeral home proving demand before it installs a room full of expensive capacity. The word compost makes the service sound like one mechanical procedure. The customer is buying much more than that. At Recompose, the current $7,000 service includes the transformation, funeral director services, filing paperwork, an online obituary, standard soil packaging, the option to donate soil through conservation partners, and transportation from anywhere in Washington state or the Portland metropolitan area. Transportation from outside that service area can cost extra. Ceremonies can cost extra. Shipping hundreds of pounds of soil can cost extra. Return Home's current base price is $5,450. With transportation fees varying by location and additional choices available through its general price list. That puts human composting in an interesting position. It can be cheaper than a conventional funeral with burial. It can be similar in price to a funeral with cremation. And it can still become expensive if the person dies far from the facility, the family wants a ceremony, or hundreds of pounds of finished soil have to be shipped. The soil itself is not a small keepsake. Recompose says one person produces roughly 1 cubic yard, about 25 to 40 12-gallon bags, commonly weighing around 20 pounds each. That is not an urn you place on a shelf. It is a logistics decision. Does the family take all of it, ship some of it, donate most of it, use it at a cemetery or conservation site? The operator has to manage that decision with the same care a conventional funeral home uses around ashes or burial. The vessel creates the outcome. The licensed funeral service creates the customer experience. This is why the cleanest description of the product is not, "we turn a body into dirt." You are selling a complete funeral arrangement that ends with soil instead of ashes or a grave. The vessel creates the distinctive outcome. The licensed service around it creates the customer experience. That distinction matters because the biological process may occupy the equipment for weeks, but the family relationship begins before the body arrives and can continue long after the soil is ready. The company has to answer calls at night, coordinate with a hospital, verify identity, secure legal authorization, tell her respectfully, offer a ceremony, communicate progress, explain what can be done with the soil, and solve the problem if the family lives 2,000 miles away. The customer sees one transformation. The business sees a chain of responsibilities. Human composting is now legal in 14 states. That sounds like 14 open markets. It is not. A state can authorize the method while zoning, health rules, professional licensing, facility standards, and implementation dates still decide whether anybody can actually open the door. California legalized the process years before its rules become operational in 2027. Georgia legalized it in 2025, while its first expected operator was still preparing to begin service in 2026. A law creates permission. It does not create a working facility or enough local families to fill one. For our model, we are opening in Washington because it has the longest operating history and the clearest rulebook. You look at the state application and feel relieved. The current facility fee is only $284. The operator application is $182. Congratulations! You have purchased the cheapest part of the business. Before the first case arrives, the building still has to satisfy local zoning, health, and environmental requirements. You need secure receiving and refrigerated holding at no more than 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Every person needs identification that follows the case from arrival, through the vessel, through processing, and into the final packaging. And the facility cannot become a general warehouse when business is slow. Washington licenses the reduction space for human remains. Then there is testing. A new operator must send each of its first 20 completed reductions to a third-party laboratory. After 20 compliant cases, at least 25% of monthly cases are tested until 80 have met the standard. Material that fails cannot be released. The laboratory is checking pathogens, certain metals, and physical contaminants. The owner is checking something larger, whether the entire chain, from intake to final handoff, can withstand an inspection and a family's questions. This is the barrier investors miss when they imagine a row of compost drums. The license is cheap. The state license is cheap. Becoming licensable is the expensive part. Building a chain of custody that nobody can lose is expensive. You are not buying permission to compost. You are accepting the responsibility to prove, case by case, that the process remains safe, separate, and correctly identified. Now let us build the company. There is no public industry price list for a complete 30-vessel facility. Operators use different vessels, buildings, curing systems, service models, and levels of vertical integration. So this is an illustrative startup model, not a quote and not an industry average. Start with the building. You need secure receiving, refrigerated holding, enough floor area for 30 vessels, curing space, processing and packaging areas, staff facilities, an arrangement office, and some kind of ceremony or family space. The floors, drainage, ventilation, electrical service, and material handling routes have to support the operation. Assume $850,000 for leasehold improvements, mechanical work, refrigeration, drainage, and the first period of rent. Now the vessels and their operating system. These are not garden tumblers. They have to hold one human body and a large volume of plant material, permit controlled aeration and rotation, support monitoring, survive repeated cleaning, and integrate with safe loading and unloading. Assume $1.1 million for 30 vessels, controls, cradles, loading equipment, and material handling. That is a modeled allowance. The real number could be lower or dramatically higher depending on what you buy, manufacture, or license. Add $250,000 for family spaces, offices, furniture, and a demonstration area. Add $300,000 for curing bins, screening and processing equipment, packaging, laboratory supplies, a removal vehicle, and transport equipment. Add $250,000 for design, engineering, legal work, local review, training, insurance deposits, and professional setup. 30 vessels are the only part of this building that can perform the paid transformation. Then add the part first-time owners always underfund. Working capital. Bodies do not arrive on the schedule your lender prefers. Staff has to be available before volume is stable. Rent begins before the first case. Marketing and community education may continue for months. A family may pre-plan today and not use the service for 20 years. Set aside $650,000. Total modeled startup requirement, $3.4 million. That is our stress test number, not an industry quote. Public funding totals from early operators are not clean facility comparisons. Those companies also paid for research, technology, legal work, public education, brand building, and years of operating losses. A funding round does not tell you what 30 installed vessels should cost. But the important number in our model is not 3.4 million. It is 30. 30 vessels are the only part of this facility that can perform the paid transformation. The ceremony room does not increase biological throughput. The refrigerated room protects the process before it begins. The office makes the company legal and usable. The vessels create capacity. And now we reach the question that determines whether all $3.4 million becomes a business or an expensive educational exhibit. How many times can each vessel earn its price every year? Recompose describes a vessel phase of approximately 5 to 7 weeks. After that, the soil leaves the vessel and cures for another 3 to 5 weeks in a separate container. That separation is important. The whole customer journey may take 8 to 12 weeks, but the stainless steel vessel can begin another case after the first phase ends, assuming processing, cleaning, records, and staffing are ready. Use an average vessel occupation of 6.5 weeks, including a reasonable turnaround allowance. One vessel can, theoretically, complete about 8 cycles per year. Theoretical is not the same as sellable. A body may arrive later than expected. A legal document may be delayed. A case may require additional monitoring. Staff may not be ready to load the next vessel immediately. Demand may arrive in waves rather than one perfectly spaced customer every few days. So, assume 7 completed cases per vessel per year in a disciplined, mature operation. 30 vessels multiplied by 7 cycles equals 210 annual cases. That is your theoretical, practical ceiling under this model. At $7,000 per case, the transformation capacity of the entire room is $1.47 million in annual base revenue. Not profit, revenue. And only if every vessel completes 7 paid cycles. Look at the same number from the vessel's perspective. 7 cases at $7,000 means one vessel can support about $49,000 of annual base revenue. The vessel may last decades. You cannot sell yesterday's empty vessel slot tomorrow. That capacity is gone. The calendar resets every year. This is the hidden constraint. A restaurant can serve another table tonight. A software company can add another subscriber with almost no physical production. A crematory can complete multiple cases in a day, subject to equipment, staffing, and law. Your human composting vessel sells one block of 6 weeks at a time. You cannot discount yesterday's empty vessel slot and sell it tomorrow. The unused capacity disappears permanently. This makes utilization the central variable. At 90% of the modeled 210 case capacity, you complete about 189 cases. At 60%, you complete 126. The difference is 63 customers. At an average collected revenue of roughly $7,000, that is more than $440,000 removed from the top line. The building is the same. The staff may be almost the same. The license is the same. The refrigeration still runs. A 30-vessel facility can look impressive at 30% utilization. 10 or 12 vessels may be active every day. Financially, most of the room is still empty. This is why the strange-looking cylinder is not the real product. The real product is a paid place on the cylinder's calendar. Now we can answer the question that matters. Where does the money actually come from? The first layer is the core funeral service. That is the $5,450 to $7,000 package. Licensed arrangements, transportation within a defined area, the transformation, paperwork, processing, and standard return or donation of soil. The second layer is geography. A person can choose a Washington facility while living in a state where no local operator exists, but the person still has to reach the facility legally and respectfully. A local funeral home may handle first call, refrigeration, permits, and shipping. The family's total invoice can rise sharply. That does not mean all of that money belongs to your facility. The local funeral home, carrier, and other partners may each keep their own fee. Your model has to separate the amount a family pays from the revenue your operation actually retains. The company with the strongest national network does not need a facility in every state on day one. It needs trusted funeral homes capable of delivering cases into the vessels it already owns, and clear contracts showing who earns what. The third layer is ceremony. Pre-planning creates a future customer. It does not automatically create free cash today. Some families want a laying-in ceremony, a private gathering, or time beside the vessel. Those spaces create additional revenue and differentiate the service from a remote industrial transaction. They also consume staff, building area, and scheduling. The fourth layer is pre-planning. Recompose sells pre-compose plans. Return Home offers pre-need insurance or trust arrangements. The customer can lock in a service and pay over time. This is strategically valuable. A pre-need customer is future demand already connected to your brand. The operator learns where interest exists, builds a long relationship, and reduces the chance that another funeral home wins the family at the moment of need. But do not count every pre-need payment as cash available to fund today's payroll. Funeral prepayments are commonly placed in protected insurance policies or trusts, and the exact accounting depends on the contract and state law. Return Home explicitly says its advance funds use protected insurance or trust arrangements. Pre-planning creates pipeline, pricing obligations, and customer retention. It is not a free operating loan from people who are still alive. The fifth layer is the platform. Recompose tells investors its expansion model includes licensing its proprietary technology. That changes the economics. Instead of funding every future building itself, the company can potentially sell vessels, systems, training, brand support, or intellectual property to existing funeral operators. That is the scalable dream. Existing funeral homes already possess local trust, licensed staff, removal vehicles, refrigeration, and referral relationships. Add a compliant vessel system, and they may enter the category without rebuilding the entire customer acquisition machine from zero. So the revenue model is not body in, soil out. It is core service multiplied by vessel utilization, fed by local trust, a transportation network, and a pre-planned pipeline. The strongest operator owns the calendar and the relationships that keep it full. A funeral business has an unusual customer acquisition problem. You cannot create demand. You can only become the chosen provider when demand arrives. That means a 30-vessel facility needs enough awareness to produce a steady flow of cases without marketing so aggressively that families feel they are being sold to during grief. Meanwhile, the cost structure does not wait politely. You need licensed funeral professionals or reliable contracted coverage. Someone has to answer the phone after midnight. Someone has to remove and transport the person. The refrigerated holding area remains available whether it contains one body or 6. The operations team monitors active vessels, rotates them, records temperatures, handles curing material, processes remaining bone, removes medical items, takes samples, manages laboratory reports, and packages hundreds of pounds of soil. The building needs rent, utilities, cleaning, security, insurance, software, and maintenance. The vehicle needs fuel and insurance. The brand needs community education, tours, hospice relationships, funeral home outreach, and advertising. Testing costs continue case by case, especially during the first 80 reductions under Washington's graduated schedule. And one case can create more work than another without creating more base revenue. A very large or very small body may require a different plant material balance. An implanted medical device may require licensed removal before the process. Some infectious or radioactive conditions can restrict timing or eligibility. Out-of-state paperwork can be slower. A family can change its soil decision after packaging has begun. The service is standardized only from a distance. Then there is release risk. The vessel earns revenue. The custody system protects your right to keep earning it. If a required sample exceeds the state's limits, you cannot hand the material to the family and apologize later. The material stays under your control while you investigate and correct the problem according to the applicable rules. If identification records fail, the business has a much larger crisis. Death care is built on custody. The family cannot independently inspect every stage. They trust that the person received is the person placed into the vessel, the tag stays with the case, the processed soil remains separate, and the correct material is returned. A restaurant can survive a bad online review. A funeral operator can lose the category with one credible story about mishandled remains. That is why the facility's most important systems may be the least cinematic ones. Two-person verification. Barcodes and physical tags, restricted access, chain of custody records, laboratory documentation, cleaning procedures, insurance. The vessel earns money only when a paid case is inside it. The custody system protects the right to keep earning money at all. And if operating one compliant facility is expensive, imagine paying not only to run it, but to invent the process, change the law, and educate an entire market before the first mature competitor arrives. That is the Recompose story. Recompose is the clearest example of why this business is more difficult than the headline price suggests. Founder Katrina Spade began developing the concept years before any state allowed it. The company had to participate in research, design a system, advocate for a new law, build public acceptance, create a facility, and teach families what the service even was. Washington became the first state to legalize natural organic reduction in 2019. Recompose did not walk into an existing category. It had to build the category around itself. That created real advantages. The company became the name most closely associated with human composting. It built a national audience, a pre-planning program, an affiliate network, and a Seattle facility with 33 vessels. It also created a cost structure that a later entrant may never have to repeat. The company's 2023 report shows the tension. Revenue increased to approximately $1,184,000, up about 42% from the prior year. Gross margin was reported at 64%. Pre-Compose membership was growing strongly. Those are encouraging numbers. The same report showed a net loss of approximately $4,381,000. It described immediate need growth in Seattle as slow and said the company pivoted away from plans for a Denver facility. Those figures are historical. They do not tell us Recompose's current 2026 profitability, and they do not reveal the mature profit of one vessel. Thousands of people can love the idea. The facility still needs cases this year. They reveal the cost of creating a category before the category is ready to carry the company. Revenue can grow. Gross margin can look respectable. Future customers can sign up, and the company can still spend far more than current cases produce because it is funding technology, regulation, public education, brand building, and a staff sized for a market that is not fully arrived yet. In ordinary funeral service, the public already understands burial and cremation. The operator competes for existing demand. In human composting, the early operator has to create awareness without knowing how quickly awareness becomes an actual death, an actual family decision, and an actual occupied vessel. A person joining a pre-plan at age 40 may be an excellent customer relationship. They may not produce operating revenue for 4 decades. That is why one of the most dangerous numbers in this business is not low interest. It is high interest with slow conversion. Thousands of people can love the idea. The facility still needs enough people to need it this year. The industry now has legal momentum. 14 states have authorized human composting. New facilities and projects are appearing beyond Washington. For an owner, however, the important question is not simply where the law says yes, it is where enough families will say yes this year. The NFDA says 61.4% of consumers are interested in exploring green funeral options. Exploring is not purchasing. A person can support the idea, tell a survey they would consider it, and still choose cremation when a parent dies because the local funeral director is familiar, the price is clear, and the ashes are ready quickly. Human composting asks the family to accept a new vocabulary, a longer timeline, a large volume of soil, and sometimes interstate transportation. So, before you pick a city, you need more than a state law. You need referral relationships with hospices and funeral homes. You need evidence that local interest converts into immediate need cases. You need a driving radius large enough to feed the vessels and a community comfortable enough with the service that you are not spending every sales call explaining the basic concept from zero. The industry also faces organized resistance. Some religious groups object to the treatment of the body. Funeral associations have raised questions about training, licensing, and how the soil may be used. State laws differ, and some restrict uses or require additional controls. This creates a timing problem. Open before the market is educated and you spend years paying to teach it. Open after the market is proven and a national operator, cemetery, or strong local funeral home may already control the referrals. And unlike a coffee shop, you cannot solve weak demand by moving the vessels next weekend. The facility is tied to zoning, licenses, refrigeration, and local trust. One bad choice can also damage every operator. A failed test, a chain of custody mistake, a badly worded advertisement, a photo that makes the process look careless. A new law is a lead. It is not a demand forecast. The biological process does not scale like software. Every additional case needs a body, plant material, vessel time, monitoring, curing space, processing, testing, packaging, and licensed responsibility. The scalable parts sit around it. The first is the referral network. A company with one facility and trusted funeral home affiliates can reach far beyond its local market. The affiliates already know how to receive a body, work with a family, and navigate local documents. The central facility concentrates the specialized equipment. The vessel is new. The funeral industry's distribution system is not. The second is pre-need distribution. A large pool of future customers gives the company demand visibility, geographic data, and long-term relationships. It may also reveal where a new facility or affiliate partnership could be justified. The third is standardization. If the operator can create repeatable vessels, monitoring software, material recipes, training, testing protocols, and documentation, it can reduce the variation between cases and facilities. The fourth is licensing. Instead of paying for every new building, the technology owner can sell the system to a funeral home or cemetery that already owns land, staff, refrigeration, and local trust. This may be the strongest long-term model. The existing death care company adds a new disposition method. The technology company earns from equipment, training, licensing, or support. Neither side has to recreate the entire business, and the newest market entrants are already hinting at this direction. The first expected Georgia operator is not a venture-backed laboratory built from nothing. It is an established funeral home founded more than a century ago, adding a specialized vessel to an existing operation. That tells you where the industry may end up. The pioneers look like technology startups because somebody had to invent the process and change the law. The mature market may look much more ordinary. Funeral home, cemeteries, and regional death care companies adding one more option to the price list. The vessel is new. The distribution system is not. Licensing and partnerships may become the scalable future. But before anyone licenses your system, the core operation still has to survive on actual funeral revenue. So let us return to the 30-vessel facility and ask the question the polished equipment cannot answer for us. How full does the calendar have to be before the owner makes money? Now, let us calculate what your 30-vessel facility might actually earn. These are original illustrative stress tests. They are not Recompose results, return home results, industry averages, audited margins, or earnings promises. The modeled facility costs $3.4 million to open. Assume you invest 40% in equity and finance the remaining $2.04 million over 12 years at 8%. Annual debt service is approximately $265,000. Before we build a good year or a bad one, find the line in the floor. At an average facility retained revenue of $7,600 per completed case, direct case costs of $1,350, payroll of $480,000, and fixed overhead of $320,000, the operation needs roughly 170 completed cases to cover operating costs and debt service before tax. That is more than 80% of our modeled practical capacity. The room does not merely need customers, it needs a nearly full calendar. Your 30 vessels have a modeled practical capacity of about 210 cases per year. You complete 180 cases, roughly 86% of that capacity. The average facility retained revenue is $7,800 per completed case after separating partner and carrier pass-through charges from your own revenue. Annual revenue, $1,404,000. Direct case costs, plant material, laboratory work, packaging, consumables, and case-specific labor, average $1,350. Total direct case cost, $243,000. Payroll and benefits for licensed funeral coverage, operations staff, care staff, administration, and on-call intake, $480,000. Facility rent, utilities, maintenance, insurance, software, marketing, professional fees, and other fixed overhead, $320,000. Modeled operating cash profit before debt service and tax, $361,000. Subtract the $265,000 in annual debt service. Modeled pre-tax cash result, approximately $96,000. You invested $1.36 million of equity. In the good year, the cash return before tax is about 7%. That is positive. It is also thin for a company that had to run above 85% of practical capacity, hold its retained revenue, control labor, and avoid a major incident. A construction overrun, higher interest rate, or a few empty months can erase it. The same building completes 105 transformations. That is 50% of practical capacity. Average facility retained revenue falls to $6,800 because fewer families purchase additional services and more of the total invoice goes to outside partners. Annual revenue, $714,000. Direct case costs total approximately $142,000. Payroll can be trimmed, but not in half. You still need licensed coverage, operation staff, intake, and administration. Assume $430,000. Fixed facility and overhead costs fall only slightly to $310,000. Modeled operating loss before debt service, approximately $168,000. Then, the lender collects $265,000. Modeled pre-tax cash loss, approximately $433,000. Same vessels, same building, same law. The difference is 75 families who did not arrive. This is why the $7,000 headline price is misleading. It makes every case look lucrative. For a new entrant, the safer path may be affiliate first, vessels second. The business is decided by how many 6-week blocks you actually sell and how much of the family's invoice remains with you after everybody else in the chain is paid. Human composting begins with an extraordinary transformation. A person enters a vessel. Weeks later, a family receives soil. That is the part people remember. The business underneath it is much less poetic. A license, a refrigerated room, a metal identification tag, 30 calendars that have to stay full, a laboratory report that has to come back clean, a funeral director answering the phone at 2 in the morning, a partner hundreds of miles away arranging transportation, a family deciding what to do with 40 bags of soil. The operator is not paid simply for decomposition. Nature already knows how to do that. The operator is paid to make the process legal, contained, traceable, safe, respectful, and predictable enough that a grieving family will trust it. And after modeling all 3 versions of the business, the answer to our opening choice is not what the polished regional facility suggests. Under this model, the safest first move for a new entrant is probably not 30 vessels in a new building. It is an existing funeral home becoming an affiliate, learning how many local families actually choose the service, building the referral network, and adding a small amount of owned capacity only after demand becomes visible. The regional destination facility is the second act, not the first experiment. The strongest companies will not necessarily be the ones with the most beautiful vessels. They will be the ones with the best distribution, the highest utilization, the clearest custody system, and enough capital to survive while a new legal option slowly becomes a normal human choice. So, if you do decide to enter human composting, remember the real order of the business. First, earn the family's trust, then prove the demand, then buy the vessel time. The soil is the outcome. Trust is the product, and time inside the vessel is the inventory.